Hey guys, and welcome to episode 2 of A Fraction of Truth. This one is going to be called Spiritual What Now? And I want to start off with a bit of a preface, continuing on from the first episode. It's my strong opinion that I left out there, and it's free, it's mine to have. You're welcome to challenge it, you're welcome to have your own. And basically all I'm going to try and explain further is that there are so many different terms for God, for several religions all over the world, modern religions, let alone ancient religions and civilizations. But I'll just leave it at the words that I expressed are excellent concepts to use, and that should be about it. They should be used to kind of guide you in your actions to live the life that you kind of want. So continuing on, I have a quote from my blog, and I'll leave a link from that somewhere here. And it goes something like this. What is spirituality? I would say truth. But the more I wrote that article, I realized that truth or the correct answer don't matter, because ultimately we're going to come to define it in our own way. I believe to be spiritual is to be you, the best you that you can possibly be. You don't ignore the bad aspects of yourself, but come to realize that there are no bad aspects, only positive or negative, beneficial or detrimental aspects. Of these aspects, we have the power to change what we don't like. As being spiritual allows us to shine our own unique light through any filter we encounter imposed by the world or by ourselves. And I like how I left that, but there is a little bit more I can add. I want to clarify that the bad aspects I mentioned are not necessarily only defined by yourself. These aspects are reflected back at you via your friends, your family, acquaintances, strangers, and your environment. And they can be very beneficial when appropriately observed. There will be times where you come across something that you can't change, maybe not necessarily by yourself, maybe with a little bit of help or in time, but the goal then would be to change your perspective on this supposed obstacle and view it more as a challenge, a tool to grow. Even more specifically, spirituality can be compared to awareness. Awareness of ourself and awareness of our world. Awareness is often underrated. There are so many aspects to it which are often overlooked or misinterpreted, under or overvalued. How many of us are aware of the differences between the Western education systems and the Eastern education systems? It's fair to assume that there probably are some, but how specifically are you aware of the differences? So I'm going to list a few out here for you. Schools in Japan typically have a uniform policy. Although all North American schools have a dress code and 20% of those wear uniforms, students are not expected to wear and maintain an outfit for the duration of the school year, as per in Japan. Although more recent changes to Japanese dress codes reflect similarities to North American private schools, there are a couple more differences I'd like to point out. Many of us have seen and perhaps hopefully tried to make the lives of our school janitors better. They aren't unintelligent scum of the earth whose last resort is swooping and cleaning up after you. Back in Japan, you wouldn't even get the chance to think about those kind of thoughts because there are no janitors. Instead, students and teachers work together to assign cleaning schedules, and you think that would make you think twice about sticking a piece of gum under your desk, right? Lunches, just a quick thought experiment. When you think of the average American lunch, what comes to mind? How about Japanese lunches? North American school lunches can vary as much as Japanese lunches do, but typically they will not. North American lunches could be anything from a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to leftovers, even food purchased from the cafeteria. But in most Japanese schools, you won't even find a cafeteria. Instead, students and teachers work together to prepare and eat the meals together, typically in their classrooms. Rarely is food pre-cooked or cooked from frozen. Things become slacker as kids age, but in Japan, schools pride themselves on their hearty and balanced meals. These are but a few hand-picked differences for the sake of the article, but if you're interested, I highly encourage doing your own research. Now I'd like to paint a scenario for you to imagine and contemplate. There are two individuals. One is born in Tokyo, Japan, the other born in Toronto, Canada. The year is 2000. Both individuals are in heavily populated areas. Both individuals are born into relatively average families, according to their national statistics. Both individuals experience average lives until their 16th birthday, again, according to national statistics. What would be considered normal? Once you do the research and you get very specific values, we're actually still left with much to the imagination. This is my point. These two individuals, even after researching the absolute average, will be different imaginary figures depending on the individual who's thinking them into existence. Did anyone think about any accidents that may have occurred? Any unforeseeable events which took place? With 100% certainty, we can all agree at least one, if not several of these occurred throughout their lives. Were our imaginary friends at fault for these accidents or occurrences? Why or why not? Surely the parents did their absolute best, to their absolute knowledge and power, to inform and guide our friends on how to avoid such scenarios. From injuries and illnesses, to bullies and relationships, from drugs and alcohol, to religious and spiritual thinking. Let's talk about punishment, or discipline, and reward systems for our now familiar imaginary friends. For starters, most North American schools don't have entrance exams, which can begin as early as junior high school in Japan. In North America, although there are many private schools which use the SATs, a standardized testing system broken down into two age groups, grades 5 to 7 and 8 to 10, they test the pupil's skills rather than their knowledge, like in Japan. These skills are quantitative, which is math, elementary algebra, geometric concepts, reading comprehension, and writing an essay to which isn't even marked, but is still sent to applicable schools. When you were in grade 5, do you remember thinking about your future? What type of education you want, let alone needed? What type of job you wanted, let alone had to scrape up or live to achieve? I didn't. But accepting the fact that many did and continue to, how much of their thinking would consist of their own? That is to say, they came up with their ideas and directions all by themselves. I would think not many did, and many more had help from their parents, teachers, friends, and family. What kind of disciplinary or rewarding actions would our imaginary friends experience? I could get into way too much detail, so I'll try not to. But to reference Article 26 of the Japanese Constitution, no child shall be denied an education. That is to say, a teacher is not allowed to send a student out of the classroom for misbehaving. Needless to say, this is not the same in North American schools. Uttering a directed cuss word at a North American teacher would typically result in a swift sending to the office. In Japan, ALTs, or assistant language teachers, are often verbally and sometimes even physically assaulted on their first day of teaching. It is recommended never to butt heads against against a student in this scenario, as the teacher is literally powerless. That is to say, there is limited disciplinary tactics available. Respect earns respect in Japan. I'm not saying that it doesn't in North America or in other places of the world, but hopefully I've successfully provided contrast for the viewer. Rather than authority figures, there are authoritative figures. General Baer, PhD, NCSP, University of Delaware, Newark, focuses on the differences between child discipline in the United States and Japan. Baer finds that children in the United States fear punishment in regulating their behavior. In Japan, there is greater focus on the impact of the child's behavior on others and not themselves. Japanese families tend to groom children to conform to the group, whereas Americans stress individuality. Baer suggests that both Japan and the United States are simultaneously individualistic and collective. He believes that the difference is in the focus on the relationship between the parent and the child in Japan, and not on the consequences of behavior. Relationships within the family are the focus. Baer states, culturally, when you act out in Japanese society, you bring shame to your family. There is some truth to the notion that Japanese children are indulged by their parents, but Japanese children are also encouraged to be sensitive to the needs of others, which is the key in Japanese discipline of children. Saying this last paragraph, it's impossible to deny the similarities between American and Japanese children, according to Bear. While grades are important to both of these communities and our imaginary friends, we can again find beautiful resemblances in their striking differences. Public schooling below the high school level is classified as compulsory education, and every Japanese child is required to attend school until they pass middle school. An interesting phenomenon to note is that even if an individual student fails a course, they may pass their class regardless of grades on tests. The grades on tests have no effect on schooling until taking entrance exams to get into high school. There's a blurb that I took from Wikipedia here, and it paints an interesting perspective to that of North American schools. In North America, you can either fail enough grades to redo a class and possibly even redo a whole year. The ramifications can be huge. Imagine losing your entire friend group because they believed you to be something you're not. How about gaining an entire friend group for the same reason? We can't blame them, for they only view us from their respective perspectives. What ripple effects may occur from these results? If you are interested, you should continue dreaming and doing your own research and come up with your own conclusions. So, continue along their lives, our imaginary friends do, being rewarded and disciplined according to appropriate or your respective perspectives. How much influence will the parents and friends of our imaginary friends have? What about their parents and friends and lives? How many un or wanted results are due to un or wanted results of un or wanted ripple effects due to un or wanted effects and more ripples and more ripples? How many of these ripple effects could have been foreseen, calculated, and used to predict future generations? If any, how and why? These predictions and calculations are occurring all over the world. With so many possibilities and variables, one might think it is impossible to accomplish such a task like creating the average social statistics we mentioned earlier. But this is exactly what our governments tell us is occurring. Predictions are just that, dictating what may happen before it does. These predictions are calculated by government employees and social service enthusiasts willing to go out, collect, analyze, and then compartmentalize the data according to the authority of their employers' guidelines, rules, and conditions. Could one potentially think that an entity such as the government of Canada or the United States or any other governing entity for that matter could stand to be corrected? Is it possible to conceive something may have been overlooked, misinterpreted, over or undervalued? Is it possible to think that the governing entities of this whole world have knowingly or unknowingly misled us? With the awareness that our lives are under control or ruled by the elite, for better or for worse, what does that mean to you as a person? A person who represents your sovereign right to live your life to your fullest potential without limiting others. Where is the line drawn? Is the line drawn within our thoughts and what we subscribe to as beliefs? What about our bodies and the food we put into them? What about our friends and family and beloved companies that we choose to keep? The education we've received and been accredited for? Is the line drawn around our communities and our nations? Does it extend to the edge of the universe? Where does the line begin and end? And perhaps more importantly, what do you do about that line and why? So let's reverse engineer a word real quick. These are again in my blog here that I can link to. And so let's reverse engineer a few words here. Nothing too crazy. So, spiritual. It's defined as of or relating to a person's spirit. Okay, what's a spirit? Spirit is a force within a person that is believed to give the body life, energy, and power. Or it's the inner quality of a nature of a person. Right, nothing too scary there. What about soul? A soul is defined as the spiritual part of a person that is believed to give the body life, energy, or power, and in many religions is believed to last forever, live forever. It's also a person's deeply felt moral and emotional nature, and it can also be the ability of a person to feel kindness or sympathy for others, to appreciate art, etc. As we can see, there's nothing too crazy or unscientific about the definition of a spirit or soul. It's how you choose to live your life. And that, for now, will conclude episode 2 of A Fraction of Truth. Thank you.